Oh, hey, Gilderis, what you doing here?
After, thankfully, a very brief recap of last week, we opened on Rosemary, explained some of the inner workings of the Delicious Stones, and hi, Ueno! Yeah, just remember, whenever the outlines look thick and yet sharp, you're watching the work of one of the MVPs of toy animation.
By the way, who's actually directing this episode? Huh, okay, so Tsuchida and Ueno. Why does that combo sound so familiar?
Anyway, he gave a basic rundown of the stone, whilst also explaining how spiritual stones seem to be a special stone, which were only handed out to top-ranking officers, and how there shouldn't be any more, as the person who created them supposedly had passed away.
Well, okay, some actual world building for the show, which we have been kind of lacking in lately. So what exactly are the Delicious Stones, and what's the difference between a special one and a normal one, and... Oh, would you look at that? We're all out of steaks.
No, instead, we got part 1 of what seems to be a 3-part arc for this Fox Fairy rather than her partner, because why would the main protagonist of the show need development? Anyway, this little tale started when Yui suggested they have some bell peppers for lunch, which triggered some bad memories in Kome Kome, when she, rather violently projectile vomited from eating one. I mean, okay, those are probably meant to be like tears, as I really don't think they would also want to show Loli Kokone losing her lunch, but come on, you try and tell me that don't look like puke. Anyway, yeah, Kokone was able to relate with the fox, having had a similar experience when she was little and had eaten the accursed veggie.
This also does seem to add credence to the idea that Kokone might be on the spectrum, as speaking from first-hand experience, I can at least say that Asperger's kids usually can become very picky eaters, especially if we have some bad first impressions of certain foods.
Bell peppers, at least in Japanese media, are pretty much the go-to most hated veggie for kids, to the point it is a cliche. So much so that for the Japanese version of Disney's Inside Out, they replaced the scenes that featured broccoli, the most hated veggie here in the States, though personally I really like it, with bell peppers.
FYI, if you want my stance on bell peppers, I'm mostly indifferent to them. I mean, I don't think there's any veggie I truly dislike, but yeah, they're kind of bottom tier for me, if only because I just don't think they have any taste. Yeah, I think we all just have different taste buds, as apparently many Japanese kids like Kokone find them to be bitter, though frankly, I take that over no taste at all. Bell peppers are especially an anomaly for me, as I usually like peppers because they're spicy, but these things have nothing, 0 Scoville units.
それにピーマンって見かけに反して中身スカスカでなんか騙された気分に
Still, that's just my opinion, so feel free to let me know yours, and if anything, you can leave in the comments below what your least favorite veggie is.
But yeah, to help the fox, Kokone decided to overcome her dislike of them and be a good example. Thus, the team started brainstorming ways they could make Chairman Kaga's favorite food a little more palatable.
Well, I think we finally got some character development for Yui. She's a goddamn sadist.
I mean, come on, she even looks like a freaking culprit from Detective Conan here. Anyway, Takumi had overcome his dislike of bell peppers when his dad snuck them into his hamburger steak, which honestly looks kind of gross.
First, let me just get rid of this pepper, and that one, and this one over here, and the big booger one here. No green diarrhea.
Still, that gave Yui the great idea to basically just throw everything at the wall and see what stuck. Because this pinkly doesn't know the meaning of restraint. Takumi also agreed to help because, well, at this point... To his credit, he did provide actual tips for reducing the alleged bitterness of the pepper by removing its membrane. Again, I always appreciate the food facts. Meanwhile, Yui had looked up a few recipes, which included... there are better veggie curries out there. That doesn't look bad, and what the hell?
Ew!
While waiting, the fox in the blue imagined the hardships that lay in front of them.
Don't worry, it's not time for the Monster of the Week fight yet. And besides, for whatever reason, they never really use food as catalyst in the show. Weird.
Meanwhile, at the lair of the bundles, the new general introduced himself to the boss, and geez, I didn't realize this Turobot was so short. Could have sworn he was at least as tall as his creator.
面白いやつだ。その石の力、 存分に使え。
Goldatz, this is part of why people are starting to call you a bomb tier final boss. You have terrible taste in generals.
But yeah, he decided to target bell peppers this week, as it was at the top of a list programmed into him of foods that needed to be eliminated. So yeah, basically he was just supposed to get rid of foods that narcissists didn't like.
Riveting.
Back with our protagonists, they had finished their cooking that looked pretty good, other than again that pound cake that, yeah, looks more like something you'd find in Ed's room. For Kome Kome, they tried the Takumi method by sneaking in some peppers into her bento.
Oh, sorry y'all, I think I might have put on an episode of Gintama by mistake.
Seriously, this episode's biggest pro was just some of Ueno's reaction faces, which Shuchita was letting him put in as many as he wanted, if only to remind us of better days. However, Kokone decided to cover for her fairy friends, so she stepped up to the final battlefield. And judging by this face, I guess she lost that final battle, which thankfully they didn't show this time. So instead, she tried to get some advice from Todoroki. And of course, like a certain other overthinker from last season, he suggested that they go to the source. Thus, the next day, they went to a bell pepper farm and, okay, in a gag episode like this, am I the only one who thinks this is actually the most meme-worthy face?
I don't know, it just kind of reminds me of some thing. I gotta get better security.
Anyway, yeah, this was the part of the episode where they helped to pick the problem produce like in previous episodes of this sort. Though, while they did provide a few interesting facts here, it was also just kind of glossed through rather quickly compared to those previous outings. I mean, I'm not saying they had to spend the whole episode here, but for something that's meant to highlight the produce, this just felt kind of rushed. Anyway, Kokone again tried to eat the stuff, this time in the form of burger peppers, and yeah, sorry, that just doesn't look good to me.
Not gonna lie, I think that looks like a bit of an improvement.
But yeah, Monster of the Week fight was against a combo of a walk and I think a drill? I mean, that's what it turned into, but I'm not sure what Spiritor pulled out here. Also, is this the first time we've seen Rosemary summon the field without his jacket on? Well, anyway, the fight this week was above average, if only thanks to Ueno's animation and just this whole whack-a-mole sequence. That said, while I tried to give it a chance last week, yeah, Spiritor and his graggly voiced cheers are starting to grate on me. Still, that aside, Kokone did have a pretty good moment here where she defended the veggie that she hated, and at least her getting a new crusty shield felt more earned than Yui adding another 1,000 calories to her punches. Afterwards, we got one of the legit really funny jokes here with everyone looking forward to Takumi's cooking, whilst in the ear range of the Diet Tuxedo mask. With that, Kokone again tried partaking in the green burger and said it was good, though you still can't convince me, which led to Komi Komi trying one, and oh god!
Okay, Tsuchida, there are certain things in this world that should not be animated, that include fairy vomit and the inside of their mouths. Got it? Good. Jesus.
Anyway, the Fox Titan enjoyed her little patty, and the episode ended as most do, with everyone just enjoying their food because we haven't seen that enough in the show.
Well, this was another fun, well-animated episode of Tropical Rouge. Yeah, what show were we watching again? Yeah, okay, but seriously, this one was mostly good thanks to the combo of Ueno and Tsuchida essentially making another episode of the previous season. Because otherwise, this is just kind of your standard eat your vegetables sort of episode. I mean, I guess it was pretty much inevitable for a show like this, and if they just want to get out of the way here, then I guess that's fine. And at least we got some nice animation in the process, except for a few frames.
While the idea of eating your veggies is certainly not exclusive to this franchise, it has been a story that's been done more than once. And compared to my two favorite examples from Tropical Rouge and Doki Doki, this was not quite up to par. I still much prefer the comedy of Aguri struggling with eating carrots or the interesting facts we learned about Minori's titular fruit. Again, I think a big problem with the show in general is its pacing and inability to multitask. it feels like they spend way too much time just talking about how good the food they were eating was, which gets in the way of us learning about it and coming to appreciate it. The farming scene in particular felt like it was just there out of obligation with how quickly it was glossed over. In turn, it also affected our Spotlight Cures arc, as Kokone overcoming her dislike of bell peppers felt rather spontaneous when she apparently couldn't even eat a decent looking spread from the previous day. If they just spent more time actually building towards this turn, it would have felt a lot more earned, but as is, as I've said, it felt rushed. Fortunately, pacing doesn't affect good animation direction too much, which the duo of Yutaka Tsuchida and Ken Ueno showed with some of their great leftover faces from Traco Rouge, as well as some effective body language that got across the comedy of this episode really well. That alone kind of salvaged this episode, but also kind of highlighted how they needed a good production staff to cover for the shortcomings of their writers, who don't even seem like they're all that interested in going in deeper with the show's main plot. Still, overall, I guess this was a fun enough and nicely animated episode, if a little too by the numbers in some areas. I know I won't be saying the same thing next week, as I can tell who's animating it, but at least this wasn't a bitter pill to swallow.
By next Friday, hopefully, we'll get that 6 Ranger video done. We're actually still writing the script for it as we go along, but it shouldn't take that much longer. As talking about my petty issues with this season took priority. Still look forward to it. Until then, though, farewell for now, my friends, and, excuse me a minute.
そんな硬い話じゃ